Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics live on Trust TV, your prime destination for insightful discussions on politics, policy and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Welcome on board. Tonight on the program, we'll shine a spotlight on the International Monetary Fund's latest recommendations for countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia and many others across the African continent that continue to grapple with deep economic reforms. The IMF warns of adjusting fatigue and growing public resentment, urging governments to realign policies, engage stakeholders effectively, and win back public trust to achieve reform goals. In Nigeria, fiscal tightening, subsidy removals, and currency devaluation have sent the cost of living soaring, exacerbating hunger and eroding the purchasing power of millions of Nigerians. So, how can government balance the reforms with citizens' welfare and well-being? Join us on the program tonight to dissect these critical issues are Aliyu Audu. He is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. Joining us virtually tonight is Baba Yusuf, a Policy Affairs Analyst. Gentlemen, good evening to both of you and thank you very much for joining us for tonight's conversation.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
Right, let me start with you in the studio, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. When you hear the IMF, position, shifting grounds and giving a much more critical assessment of where we are right now as a nation and what's happening across the sub-region, how do you interpret their assessment of this administration's performance when it comes to managing the economy of the country?
All right, I think, like they've said in the past, they are very in support of the reforms, and what they're doing is just driving home what we already all know. They need to carry the nation along. They need to ensure we deepen communication, and it's easy to forget where we're coming from and to realign the public's mindset to where we want to be and how to get there. I think the responsibility of ensuring that the entire country, it's carried along in terms of frequent communication, explanation, and getting the support of the Nigerian populace and having them understand that as difficult as this temporary difficulties is for everyone, it's a necessity, is a road we must travel if we must arrive at the desired destination.
So when you say where we're coming from, Nigerians can easily say, well, where we're coming from is better than where we are right now. We're paying less than 300 naira per litre. The inflation was less than 30%. So contextualize what you mean by where we're coming from.
We're coming from a position where we were literally borrowing money from developed countries, not to improve our affairs, but basically to patronize their products. It's easy to try to look at it from the point of we are now paying more than we used to pay at micro level. But at macro level, we were basically borrowing, eating our future and borrowing to eat the future of our generations to come.
Isn't that similar to what's happening right now? I mean, the president just sent a request seeking approval to borrow 1.7 trillion before the 2025 budget is even being considered. I mean, isn't that the same pattern?
No, it's not the same pattern. What do you? Let's take the reforms for instance. As far as petroleum products are concerned, as we speak right now, we're at a point where we can confidently say we're not going to be importing refined products because we have a local refinery. Thanks to the PIA that was signed by President Muhammad Buhari before in 2021, and part of the requirement of that PIA is the removal of subsidy. And we must remind ourselves that as at the time, there was a general plea for that subsidy removal to be pushed forward, and he requested for about 18-month extension, which expired about the time President Ahmed Tinubu took over. Where it was we have the natural resources, yes, but if we continue to be a country that whose economy is based on extractive economy, which basically means we're taking our raw materials without adding value and pushing out there, meaning we were exporting jobs for other countries who were importing finished products for us, and they were equally available to borrow us money to consume their finished products.
I think that lends credence to the point the IMF says, because in part of the report it said, quote, resource-intensive countries, which are countries like Nigeria, for instance, because more than half of our export is from crude oil, right? Continue to grow at about half the rate of the rest of the region, with oil exporters struggling the most, i.e. Nigeria in this case. So, I mean, the assessment, while you say is, confirming that the reforms are working or we're on the right track, is also alluding to how dissatisfied the people are. What, in your interpretation, is the best way Nigerians can dimension this so that they can understand the necessity of the reforms vis-a-vis what the government is doing to make life a little more bearable? Because we're talking about this monumental cost of living crisis in the country.
Yes, I mean, we have a president who at the moment understands the fact that if we're going to run our national economics the way we've always done it, then we'll never be anywhere close to where we want it to be. Where do we want it to be? We want a situation where people can have access to high-paying jobs. People can, afford the basic necessities of life. They don't necessarily have to be cheap. Anything good will not come cheap. But if people can earn good money from jobs and afford it, like it is in developed countries, I mean, we are gradually moving away from a subsidized environment where everything is made cheap. Because
everything?
Yeah, I mean, if we say everything is expensive now, that means everything was cheap, right?
Affordable, I think, is the right word a lot of people would use in this scenario.
Affordable is relative. Affordability is the function of,
you could say the same thing about cheap also.
It's a function of purchasing power.
Right.
Purchasing power lies squarely on the ability of citizens to have good paying jobs. So basically, we are going to a system where jobs will be created, jobs will be available for people to earn a living, then be able to afford this thing. Where we were coming from was basically where, we had our forex. I mean, we had the forex subsidized, so we are able to consume more of imported products. Money meant for infrastructure, money meant for social services were pumped into subsidizing forex, were pumped into subsidizing petroleum products. And the repercussion of this is our own industry, our manufacturing sector, our service sector were affected.
Yeah, but you are aware, right, Mr. Audu, that in the projection of the proposal for next year's budget, the Tinubu administration is talking about 1,400 naira, pegging the dollar to the naira. And that in itself says a lot about what the government is trying to do, prop up the naira so that the dollar could remain at 1,400 naira, because at the current market value, it is much more than that. So aren't you negating the point that you're making, that things are changing?
We do not think that the naira isn't going to, gain on value. I mean, we have to. Whatever is driving that right now, the excess demand for forex right now, it's strongly affected by the shortage of forex supply in the market. We are at a point where we are now producing as much as 1.8 million barrels of crude oil per day. Naturally, that should bring in extra forex import, forex, right? Then we are at a point where we're not importing refined products anymore. That should save us in that area, right? All of this, and we have non-oil exports on the increase. Then there's a strong, a very good reduction in the amount of imported consumables. Naira will naturally gain value as we add value.
Naturally?
Yeah, it will.
The experts who have taken a look at the numbers and the projections by the government since last week's announcement following the Federal Executive Council approval of the MTF and the 2025 spending plan say much of it is unrealistic. The benchmark is unrealistic. The exchange rate is unrealistic. The barrels per day projection of over 2.06 million barrels per day is unrealistic because right now the volatility in that sector itself is one that the government cannot guarantee. Even 1.5 or 1.6 or 1.8 million, talk more of 2.06 million barrels per day. But where is the government getting its own empirical evidence to support the argument that you are making? Because other economists have looked at the data and said, listen, your projections are wrong, and there is no way, at the end of the day, this spending plan is going to be feasible.
We are currently doing 1.8 million barrels per day, currently. And by the assurance of the NNPC PLC, we are going to be able to do as much as 2 million in December.
You and I both know to do better than to take NNPCL's assurances.
No, I don't know better. I'm not an expert in the field. I'm not in charge.
They have given us reason to doubt their assurances. That's what I'm saying.
But we are coming from a point where when this president took over, we're barely doing 1 million. We're doing 1.8 million right now. You see, this thing is a matter of how we look at it. It's what they say about we look, but we see differently. I see it half full. You decide to see it half empty. I see progress. I see the fact that the changes that have been done to the PIA by the current administration has attracted new interest in the sector, has brought about some level of competition in the sector. And that's there's been an improvement in securing our pipelines. There's been improvement in our oil production. I will take the word of someone who says we're going to do 2 million because he's already doing 1.8 over someone who doubts that we're going to do 2.06 million next year when I'm already on 1.8.
When was the last time we had 2 million barrels per day from the data available? And when we talk about the credibility of the NNPCL from 2001 to date, the promises of having the refineries up and running after the injection of billions and billions of dollars have been one too many, where Nigerians have lost count of it. And that's why I'm saying that they've lost the credibility to say and believe that the public will take their word for it, because they've made so many promises that they couldn't keep in the past. And that's the point I was driving at.
Yeah, I get you, but we have a different manager at the top right now. We have a different man in charge of the country. You understand? It's okay that we have our concerns about promises of organization or agencies who have, over the years disappointed us with their promises. But what options do we have actually? Especially when the man in charge is, has shown that he can actually trust. We should understand something, that he doesn't want to fail. He doesn't want to fail.
But Nigerians, more importantly, don't want him to fail, because they are the ones living with the consequences of the imperfections or the failings of these economic reforms. That's their experience on a day-to-day basis.
It is not an imperfection. It is not a failure. It's a process. We are coming from the point where we need to reorientate ourselves. Good things don't come easy. We used to quick money, quick cash. You get into government, get contracts. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world.
When you say we, who are you talking about? We,
the same Nigerians that you're talking about. I'm very serious about it. This is the same reason why we respect Yahoo Boy over a professor. It's the same reason why a young child go out and come back with millions of naira and parents are not questioning.
You're saying that is no longer happening now?
I am telling you that we are going to have to move away from that.
Right.
To understanding that every good thing takes time. That's what I'm saying.
But we're talking about economic reforms, and I feel like, you're conflating a variety of issues, and I do agree with you that our value system has been eroded for quite some time. It's nothing new, right? But when we talk about the economics of the conversation, where the Tinubu administration is promising renewed hope with, tax reforms, with subsidy removal, tightening government spending, and so on and so forth, the question is, where are the gains so far? It's getting close to 2 years already, halfway into a 4-year tenure. When are we going to reap the rewards of the sacrifices that Nigerians have been making from day one?
All right. We got here as a result of collective misdoings, right? We are going to get out of here. Through collective efforts and sacrifice.
Explain the first part, collective misdoings.
Yes.
By who and who, exactly?
Whether those in government, those outside government. We didn't have foreigners in charge of our affairs, did we? For at least in the last 40 years.
You're saying Nigerians have to take responsibility for the fate of the economy and where we are right now?
I'm saying we, as a people, we have to take responsibility for how we got here. And we have to be responsible for how we are going to get out of here.
How are the people responsible, Mr. Audu? How are the people responsible for the failings of successive governments?
Successive governments are the people. People go into government. Nobody is born in government.
Yeah, but how are the people responsible? If people vote you today to fix the problem for them and you're unable to do so, how is it the responsibility of the people?
The current government isn't unable to do that. You are quick in your judgment. I am telling you to take cognizance of the fact that to fix any problem, a process must be put in place, and this process takes time. It's no magic wand effect. You're not going to wave magic wand and it's going to be fixed. Even the developed countries we look at today didn't wake up one day and they became this. It took time, it took processes, it took sacrifices. That is exactly where we have to go. You see, when we normalize working for results, when we normalize going through process to get to the end, it's going to affect every aspect of our general lives. I mean, we've gotten so used to quick wins, quick cash, quick rewards, that we have almost forgotten that a problem of 40 years or more can't be fixed in 2 years if we are being honest with ourselves. However, I would want us to, look critically at the processes. Are the steps being taken wrong? No, they're not. Are they difficult? Yes, they are difficult. And the president acknowledges that. And that's why he keeps saying that the pain that we are going through is only going to be temporary. But the gains to come from it will be permanent. So all we can do at this point is...
Isn't that just rhetorics at this point?
No, it isn't rhetorics.
Because there's no timeline on that narrative. Things would change, things would get better. When? The question Nigerians are asking right now, watching this conversation, is when? If you can give us a timeline, then we'll be patient enough to wait for it. How long do we have to continue this suffering for things to get better?
What I can tell you is that the quicker we all get involved, I know the government has a responsibility of actually outlining what the processes are, where we are heading, how we are supposed to get there, and what everybody's involvement, should be. That is the responsibility, and that is what is being worked on at the moment, But the quicker we all get on board and understand, first thing first, we all must understand that this road is the road we must travel if we want to arrive at the desired destination.
Okay, part of that report also said, quote, in the face of popular frustration, there is also an opportunity to work to mobilize support for large, deep reforms of the sort that, for instance, in Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria, the governments are pursuing. Realizing the opportunity requires rethinking reform strategies to build and maintain pro-growth coalitions among constituent leaders and the general public. Now, it also says that this will require attention to communication and engagement strategies, reform design, compensatory measures, and rebuilding trust in public institutions. So I'm going to take the last 2 points, which I think is very, very important. compensatory measures, we're talking about palliatives here, right? And all of the other incentives that the government could give to help cushion the impact of this reform, but also rebuilding trust in public institutions. I know you have an obligation or a mandate to see things positively from the government side, but do you honestly believe that when it comes to compensatory measures and rebuilding public trust in institutions of government, the Tinubu administration has done a good job so far?
It can be better. Whatever has been done.
So that's a no?
No, whatever has been done can be better. However, there is also a responsibility on the part of people to have open minds, you know, and try to take out biases. I'll say two things. The last time announcement came out that about 25 million households, or 25 million Nigerians, 5 million households, at the average of 5 persons per household, have been given the first round of the 25,000 naira. You know, a lot of people came out saying, how come we didn't know? But this was done with the full supervision of the World Bank. This was done with, the reason it actually took that long was because the people who qualified for this didn't even have bank accounts. And the era of paying over the desk, cash payment, needed to be stopped so that the what's it called, the register for the vulnerable people in our community can actually be digitalized in such a way that transfers. But
we already had that before the coming of the Tinubu administration.
It had to be cleaned up. It had to be cleaned up. Because
you think that 3 months period where allegedly the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry that ended up being embroiled in its own controversy did a good enough job that would have impacted the lives of people since the removal of fuel subsidy, which to date we're talking about over 33% inflation in the country? Do you think that token, that drop in the ocean, is significant enough to point and say this is what the government has done to make life easier for the people?
No, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, let's not think that palliative is supposed to cushion the total effect of some of these reforms. No, it can't. It's supposed to take care of the vulnerables amongst us.
Yeah, but it hasn't. That's the point.
When you say it hasn't, I mean,
they are still vulnerable today.
Of course, and these are the people, 5 million of them, 5 million households who have been given this.
That number has more than multiplied threefold. You know that, right?
That's your thinking. You don't.
That's
have
not
any,
thinking. Even the NBS data has shown that unemployment has gone up significantly. The level of poverty that we're dealing with has increased also exponentially over the past 18 months since the advent of the Tinubu administration. These are all things that without the data, it's obvious to see. When businesses shut down, people lose their jobs. If people lose their jobs, it means they're unable to provide for their families, and so on and so forth. The ripple effect is there, isn't it? So is it not fair then to say that the scale of the solution has been outweighed by the scale of the problem, because the problem is much bigger than what the Tinubu administration has been able to do so far?
Let's get something right. I mean, when you paint it this way, it seems as if we're coming from El Dorado. We've always had this problem of poverty, people living below the poverty line. It didn't happen because subsidy was removed. It didn't happen because forex subsidy was removed. It's always been there.
It only got worse.
As a matter of fact, you see, whether we like it or not, if we want an economy that can take care of its own citizens, provide the required jobs, be competitive, we are going to now take action to ensure that the globalization does not leave us behind. We are going to have to be globally competitive. And for as long as we keep lowering our prices just to bring product from outside and have government pay for the rest, then the basic function of government, which actually creates jobs and make life better, such as provision of health facilities, infrastructure, it's the same purse that has been used for this subsidy that's supposed to be used to provide this infrastructure, provide these social services of the government. So it is not denying the fact that it has been difficult since this reform started. Yes, but what we are saying is we have to be open to the fact that difficulty is a part of it. You know, nothing good we are going to get that's going to come by just waving a magic wand. We are all going to have to appreciate the fact that we have to work, we have to make this sacrifice to get there. However, on the other side of transparency, there's been a whole lot to ensure that automation of different operations of government at different levels gives you that transparency. I mean, we've coming from the past where you wait for people to steal money, then you start using EFCC or ICPC to run after them. What about just preventing that stealing, making it difficult for people to steal? Which are all of the anti-corruption moves that the president has been making. You know, prevent it as against going after it when it is stolen.
So when we talk about the expectations of the people and what the Tinubu administration is doing so far, right? We talk about the promises that were made and the promises that Nigerians expect that the government was going to deliver. And I just want to take you up on a particular point, which is part of the manifesto of the Tinubu administration. I mean, there's quite a lot there that seem contradictory to what is currently happening right now. But when it comes to social programs, for instance, the administration promised before the election it was going to do quite a lot for Nigerians. So Nigerians naturally became expectant that all of these promises will be fulfilled as part of the renewed hope agenda. Now you're saying people should limit their expectations, should buckle up, and should sacrifice them more. Where is the proof that, you know, this remedy is actually working? Where is the data? Where is the evidence to show that we're actually, you know, making progress here? Because you have the ones that prescribe some of these reforms saying it's not working the way it's supposed to.
Who said?
IMF. I mean, that's the whole point of this conversation.
No, I didn't get that from IMF. I mean, if we are reading the same reports, there is no part of it that said it isn't working.
Okay, perhaps I can read word for word what the IMF report says.
Please do.
Right, and perhaps we can then make our own inferences from that particular reporting. And I just want to take this particular quote, if I can get to it rather quickly, where the IMF says that just to drive home the point, because I'm struggling to find the particular part of that report. It says that while the deputy director, I beg your pardon, of IMF last week Friday at the Lagos Business School said the economic growth is expected to remain stagnant in Nigeria this year, and the report urged Nigeria to close gender gap in a bid to improve gross domestic product, saying that that could grow the GDP by 30%. It also went further to also say that inflation is still in double digit in almost 1/3 of the countries, including Angola, Ethiopia, and Nigeria, and above target is almost half of the region, particularly where monetary policy is not anchored by exchange rate pegs. And you know, the report is quite scathing. There is no way you can cherry pick and find a positive to swing the understanding from what this report is saying.
Let's not misrepresent what they have said. What they have said is, in summary, that the Nigerian government needs to communicate the reform policies a lot more with the people, carry them along, review the follow-through plans. You know, how these processes are being done, that, you know, we've got to review, you know, get stakeholders buying, get the people to understand what's being done, get the people to see the vision, get the people to know what we all have to do to get to where we need to do, and be more transparent in this. There is no part of that report that says it is not working.
Okay. So this is the point I was looking at. I was trying to make. In its latest outlook report for sub-Saharan Africa, IMF said Nigeria is one of the resource-intensive countries in sub-Saharan Africa struggling to realize gains of its reforms. You do know that's the diplomatic way of saying whatever you're doing is not working.
No.
What does struggling to realize the gains of your reform mean, to your understanding? What does it mean?
It means you haven't gotten to where you ought to be. Nobody is saying we have gotten
So is that saying it's working?
Is that saying it's failed?
What does struggling mean? If you're struggling to answer my question, that means you're not answering the question.
If you are struggling to earn a living by coming to work every day, it means you are failing at it.
Yeah,
do you not wake up in the morning to get yourself ready for work every day?
I think that anecdote doesn't work.
How does it?
When it says you're struggling to realize the gains of reforms, it means that your expectations are not being met, whether as a government or as a people. Isn't that a fact? Is the government happy with its reforms?
Yes, the government is happy with the reforms.
It's happy with the results it's getting from the reforms?
Oh, yes.
So what is the result exactly?
As I speak with you, like I said earlier, we have a lot of foreign investors who have shown a lot of more interest into investing in the country because of these reforms. We have our oil production that has gone up significantly. We have our trade balance, which is now in the positive, like we've never had it before. Our trade balance is in the positive. We have the non-oil export that is gaining, ground. That's to talk about diversification and moving us away.
It has been happening since the Buhari administration. Agricultural exports have been up over the past 4 or 5 years.
So since Buhari administration, there was no hunger. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm just saying.
You see how you're quick to say
to put the record straight.
You see how you're quick to say it's been happening. Was there no hunger during Buhari administration? Why didn't you say it was caused by Buhari administration?
No.
Why did you say it was caused by administration
behind the performance of the Buhari administration?
I am giving you statistics year on year. And you are saying it's been happening. The fact that it's been growing does not mean it hasn't stopped growing. It's still growing.
I'm just saying you can't take credit for that. You can't say the current reforms are responsible for that if the trajectory is already on the up.
So we should take the blame for the current hardship, but we can't take credit for processes that we have improved on and gotten improved results. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying you cannot take whole credit for that.
I didn't take a whole credit for it. I was just giving you what has improved.
Yeah, we're talking specifically about the reforms.
Abdullahi, let's get it right. You asked me, if the government thinks the reforms are working, and I said yes. And you asked for how, and I was giving you the macroeconomic indices, indicators that show that we are on the right path. And you said that has been happening.
No, I said one of those indicators, you're talking about non-oil exports being up. And I said it has been up for a considerable amount of years.
You see, the very good advantage of having a low currency power is the opportunity that it gives you to make more from exports. Right?
Let me understand. You're saying there's a good side to Naira losing its value?
Oh, yes, there is, economically. That's the reason why.
Good side to Naira losing its value?
Yes.
We have people from across Niger coming in, buying our food products at a cheaper rate so that they can take it back, and our farmers are receiving the short end of the stick, and you're saying that is good?
Hold on. Did you say people come from Niger to buy our products and take there? That sounds to me like an export.
Yeah, but it's cheaper. The product here is cheaper because our Naira doesn't have the same considerable value as the francs or the dollar, for instance.
So when they come in to buy, what do they spend? When they come to Nigeria to buy, what do they spend?
They spend hard currency.
Exactly.
How does that work? You're saying devaluing the Naira is good. I want you to give me a perspective, medium and long-term perspective, how this is good. That the Naira is losing its value and is good for us, exactly.
You see, with a lower powered currency, naturally, exporters are in a good position. When the value of your currency is high, basically, the reason why it was subsidized in the first place, and the implication of it was because the implication of it being where it was too much importation of finished products from outside. But where we are currently, we are at a position where every manufacturer can target export products. You know, if you can just put some of your output for export market, like you rightly said, we have our farmers who now sell to people outside.
They're selling at a cheaper rate because of the exchange rate.
What makes it cheap? What do you mean they're selling at a cheaper rate?
For instance, if 2 years ago you come in from Niger and you have to spend 30,000 naira to buy one bag of 50 kg rice, right? Now with your CFA, you can come in and buy 2 of those bags for the same amount because the CFA has appreciated in value and the naira hasn't. So that's why Nigerian farmers are losing.
So you mean Nigerian farmers who were selling...
That's just one of many examples, by the way.
You mean Nigerian farmers who were selling a bag for 30,000 are now selling a bag, are now selling 2 bags for the same 30,000? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that even if the amount goes up because of inflation, the value has come down because the naira has lost its value, and that is the key point in this conversation, that the naira losing its value cannot be termed a good thing in any way, shape or form, to be honest. No country wants its currency to lose value, because losing value by definition means that it is not worth what you would want for that currency to be.
No, that's not correct. That's not correct. There are countries who have kept their currency at certain... I mean, look at China, for instance. You think China cannot rise beyond being... to compete with the dollar? You think they can't do that? But it will affect their exports.
Please explain, because this is a new economic thinking for me. Because I don't think countries can just simply wake up and decide, okay, we want our currency to have X value, and so it will be. It's a function of demand and supply, isn't it?
You know, the first sector model of the economy, that the fourth that's about export and import. You know, when you take away the the consumer consumption, investment and government spending, the export versus and the import, comes to the point where when you have more of your money buying goods from outside, what you're actually doing is reducing, you're taking out of your GDP worth to patronize outside products. It reduces it, and naturally you have no balance. But when you have more of your finished products going outside, your GDP
Why isn't that
increases.
happening to the dollar?
What do you mean the dollar?
Yeah, you say if you're using your currency,
you're comparing naira to the dollar.
No, they're all currencies, isn't it? Right. So let me understand your thinking, because if you're saying that, okay, let's just talk about demand and supply. Where in any part of the world is the naira sought beyond Nigeria? Where is the naira spent beyond Nigeria?
The people who come from Niger to buy those things you talk about in Kano or
they spend it in Nigeria. They don't take it back to Niger.
So when they come, what do they come with?
Yeah, they come with their currency.
So that currency is seeking naira.
Yeah, but they spend it in Nigeria.
Yeah, because the
value is still domestic.
The ability,
not international.
The ability.
You do know that the IMF, the recent ranking, has Nigeria as the naira as one of the worst performing currencies in the world, and you're trying to spin it to make it look like it's a good thing.
No, don't get me wrong. Right. I am telling you that being low itself provides an advantage for us to be able to capitalize on it by increasing on our exports.
We have the worst performing currency. You are saying that the silver lining is this is a big opportunity for us that the World Bank doesn't know of.
No, the World Bank is aware economically. Everybody who knows his economics knows that. I'm surprised you don't.
So it's a good thing that we have the worst performing currency.
No, it's not a good thing, but it provides you an opportunity to capitalize on increasing your exports, and that's how your value your currency grows.
And you're saying that that's a positive for the Tinubu administration?
No, I'm telling you that with the lower currency, well, the positive. Let me paint a picture for you. What we used to do. That's what they call Dutch disease. which usually happens when the currency is overrated, right? And it's usually happen when you basically export your raw materials, and just because of that you focus on one product that has been sorted, like oil in our own case, and we forget about our manufacturing, we forget about our agriculture, we forget about all the other things. Those are the effects of doing what we have done over the years when we turn our economy to a monoproduct economy. So because of the frequent attraction of forex through this oil, we begin to think that the naira is as big as it is. In order to deceive ourselves further, what we do is we earn dollars that we are supposed to use to build infrastructure, put into agriculture, put into social services. Do you know what we do? We use it to build a ladder and put the naira on top of it so as to just measure with the dollar. Right now, what Mr. President has done is take away the dollar, take away the ladder. Stop using the hard-earned dollar to defend the naira.
And how do we benefit from that long term?
Good. Long term, it means that ideally, naturally, it discourages excessive imports. And the interest rate you've talked about, when you look at it, it shows that even when the interest rate was low, not so much was being spent in investment, not so much was being spent in production, not so much was being spent in manufacturing. Most of it was being spent in consumption, and consumption, not just consumption of products within our economy, consumption of foreign products.
Okay, by next year, which is a little over 40 days, I think, away or so, right? The new budget will come into effect. Using your explanation, how do we justify? Because you're basically saying the presidency, the administration has taken away the ladder. They don't want to protect the naira anymore. They want to float the currency and let it survive in the free-flowing economic situation, depending on the very many variables, right?
Yeah.
How did they arrive at 1,400 naira in the exchange rate for next year?
Because we expect to do a lot more in terms of increment in exports, both for oil and non-oil products. And the moment you are able to attract more forex into your country.
So it's a guesstimate.
What?
It's a guesstimate.
No.
Do you know the exchange rate? What the exchange rate is at now? Do you know what the exchange rate is at now? I know you have a rough idea of how much it is right now. What is it at right now?
1,700.
1,700. So please explain to my viewers how the administration is that optimistic that there would be a stable exchange rate at 1,400 naira in the new year.
Do you know what the budget is? It's a proposal.
Yeah, but it's one based on science, right? On data, on information. So what is the science behind that conclusion? I'm sure they didn't just wake up and said, you know what, let's just put it at 1,400. There must be some thought, some analysis that went into it.
You would probably have to speak with a minister for budget and planning. I won't claim to have insight, into what you're asking for right now.
So there's a bit of magic going on.
No, there's no magic going on. Anywhere in the world, budgets, are like proposal of earnings and expenditure. This is how much we propose to earn, and this is how much we want to spend, and this is what we want to spend it
based on realistic assessment of the situation, isn't it? Right. So how is 1,400 naira realistic? Because I have a feeling that if by this time next year, if we're going to have this conversation, if we're opportune to have this conversation, we're not going to be talking about the naira at 1,400 naira, because the experts have taken a look at it and they said they don't know how they arrived at that figure. Not the oil benchmark at $75 a barrel, when you have a President Trump coming in by January next year, with the possibility of the Russia-Ukraine war coming to an end, the Israeli war in Gaza coming to an end. There's likely going to be some sort of stability in the energy sector on a global scale. So we might see a drop in the price of oil. But the pegging for next year is at $75 a barrel, 2.06 billion barrels per day, and 1,400 naira. And all the experts that I have seen that have made it into the news have said it's not realistic. The parameters are just not realistic. And you're saying that, there's a different argument.
I am saying I trust the man in charge. I have faith in Mr. President. I'll give you something. Track records holds for people, especially in public office. I look at Mr. President and look at people who doubt him, and I'm looking at those who the doubters are. Then it reminds me of over 20 years ago, 24 years ago, when he was governor of Lagos and all of the things he set out to do, his plans for Lagos. And I'm looking at the Lagos today, and I'm saying, oh yes, he's done it. There were doubters then. There will always be doubters. So I don't concentrate on the doubters. I concentrate on the questions. I concentrate. These are just. I would like to put my energy on the real deal, the man who's done it before. And you said your people you believe didn't believe we could move from 1.2 million barrel per day to 1.8, but we are doing 1.8 today.
Nothing is stable. Sometimes we fall way below that, even under the Tinubu administration.
Abdullahi, in a month of October, between October and November.
No, don't cherry pick, because I'm
not cherry picking.
I can also give you a month where
it's been a steady.
The production did not hit a certain quarter, even when we've had an increase in our quota from the I beg your pardon. Come
OPEC,
again?
Our quota.
Yeah, our quota increased from OPEC. When we had that, we couldn't meet our own quota. So it's not a given that there is stable oil production at any given number.
I am telling you, in the last 6 months, for instance, there's been a steady improvement. Look through the month and show me which of the months has not witnessed a steady growth. That's what I'm asking.
So, obviously, you have, like I did say, the mandate to see things the positive way, no matter how skewed they are. But just before we wrap things up, right?
It is,
just before we wrap things up.
No.
How do you get? How does the administration hope to mobilize public support for what is currently going on right now? And I suppose, without the rhetorics, without the politicizing the conversation, you're well aware that Nigerians are running out of patience, if not have run out of patience with what is going on right now. You can spin the conversation however you want, but they do not feel that the president is delivering on the expectations and the dividends of democracy, as we like to say. What do they need to understand about how soon the tides will change?
As a government, we need to increase our communication, and that we're doing. I mean, there's been new engagement as to that regards, and it's important we let Nigeria, Nigerians have an idea of where we ought to be and the journey there, and what is expected of everyone. Most importantly, it's very important that we get Nigerians to own the development. I mean, as a nation, government don't build a nation, the people do. So, the mindset of everybody fold hands, sit back, and let the government do it, it's not how it works anywhere in the world. You see, right now we have food security issue, right? What opportunity does that give us? We can all go back to agriculture. I have. You can.
Really?
Yes.
Are you aware of what's going on in Sokoto, in Katsina, in parts of Kebbi, in parts of the northeast, where farmers, in parts of Kaduna, where farmers are unable to access their farms because of insecurity, because of banditry?
I am aware there's been a significant improvement in terms of security of the northern Nigeria.
Really?
Yes.
Over the course of the last farming season?
There has been a significant improvement in security in Nigeria in the last 12 months.
Right, okay. There's one part where it's like seeing the glass half full or half empty, and then there's another part where you get a sense that sometimes we're living in a parallel Nigeria where you see things differently as opposed to what is actually happening on ground. But I appreciate your analysis on this particular conversation. I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap things up. That's all the time that we have. Mr. Aliyu Audu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs. Thank you most kindly for joining us on Daily Politics tonight. I appreciate you for the analysis.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you most kindly for joining us. We do appreciate your time and company. Daily Politics will be back tomorrow, live and exclusive as always on Trust TV. Until next time, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. We'll see you soon.